welcome back. We wanted to invite you into some of the discussion that we're having about Passion Week. Pastor and I even read a book this last couple weeks by Will Varner called "Passionate About the Passion," and he pulls out some points that are kind of obscure, tries to pull out some things that other people aren't necessarily talking about, and it's been an interesting book. Today we want to talk about that upper room night, that last night before Jesus starts the process to going to the cross. And so it's Passover, it's a celebration time. Pastor, why don't you share a little bit about, again, kind of set the stage
Sure.
of what's happening, what people's expectations might be.
Well, it would be very important that it's a family time. It's a tradition that's been going on for thousands of years. It goes all the way back to the Exodus. And so every year for thousands of years, all around the world, Jewish families would come together to celebrate Passover. And so Jesus actually has a couple disciples go and get everything ready. And so then now they've come to the evening and they're in the middle of this Passover celebration. It's not the Last Supper yet.
Right.
It's Passover.
Right. It's Passover. And, there's a lot that happens in that room that night. There's no possibility we could talk about all the different things that happen. There's the Judas, the Judas conversations, and then he leaves. There's the meal itself. There's an argument that we're going to talk about in a second. There's confronting Peter, letting Peter know that Satan wants to sift you like wheat, and he can't even believe that not only is Jesus gonna to go to the cross, but that he would ever deny him. I mean, there's so many things that happen before he leaves at the end of the night to go to the Mount of Olives. It'd be hard for us to even deal with all of that.
John 14, 15, 16, and 17 are actually from the Last Supper to the garden.
Yeah.
And so just think of all that's in there as
It's a lot.
his last discussion with them and then the prayer. But we're getting ahead because now we're right in the middle of Passover.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be this like celebration time. Like, there's
Right.
this anticipation, there's an excitement about the all the history and the ceremony, and it's a time kind of family time.
Right.
And right in the middle of it, Luke chapter 22 says, "And there arose also a dispute among them as to which one of them was regarded to be the greatest."
Yes, can't you imagine? And at least 8 of them are rolling their eyes to say, why does this always have to happen?
Right. Yeah, because Peter's always sticking his foot in his mouth.
Right.
And do you think that we're a little hard on the guys that they're having this conversation? Like, it seems a little ridiculous to us, but do you think to them in their culture it was maybe not as ridiculous as we think it is?
Well, we always want to get ahead. We always think we could do better than the guy that's in charge. James and John's mom had actually come to Jesus
Right.
to say,
Right.
hey, could you work it out so my boys are your right and left hand men?
Yeah.
And so,
Does that speak to the culture of, like, I mean, Jesus, what he's about to go into is so cultural. It's so
Right.
countercultural.
because the disciples are thinking kingdom. They're not thinking
Right.
crucifixion. They
Yeah.
really can't wrap their heads around that. So they're thinking even if he's crucified, there's going to be a kingdom. So they're concerned about
Their place.
their place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we're honest, we all work through that. That's why this illustration is so stark. We can be hard on them, but every time I look in the mirror, I see a guy that wants to be in charge.
Who wants to climb the ladder in some degree, or to be looked at as being, great. And I mean, our culture now is so wrapped up in who's the GOAT in pretty much any category. Kids today want to be YouTube stars. And the last statistics I looked at was like 54% of people would desire to be a celebrity. And I'm sure maybe some celebrities say you don't really want all that comes with this, but the truth is that
But
when
none
you're
of
on,
them quit.
none of them quit being a celebrity. That's true. Maybe very few. But yeah, when you're on this side of it, like there is this pull and this desire to be the greatest. And Jesus then goes into teaching what it really means to be the greatest.
Right. He says this is Gentile thinking.
Yeah.
This is the way the world thinks. You know, every time I come to this passage, I think of a time when I had become the senior pastor and I was flying into an airport and I ran into somebody who was a friend going way, way back to my teen years. And he said, so what's your position at the church? And I said, senior pastor. And he goes, way to go, man. Just like that.
He might be watching right now. You never know.
Could be. But
Wait,
it bothered me.
remembered that
It
all
was
these years
like,
later.
yeah, it was like I had risen to the top of, you know, I was president of the company now. It always bothered me. It's
right.
wrong-headed.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he didn't mean it that way probably, but it's the way that we think. You
Yeah.
know, every youth pastor is always asked, when are you going to be a senior pastor?
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
you know, we could be hard on them, but the truth is Jesus is starting then to say that's not the way we're supposed to be. We're
Right.
always supposed to be servant-minded.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and Luke's book, chapter 22. You know, right after he, you know, says among them there's this dispute who wants to be the greatest, and in this account he says that, and he says to them, the king of the Gentiles lorded over them. You know, it's the Gentile thinking, and then in verse 26, but it is not this way with you. The one who is the greatest among you must become like the youngest, the leader like the servant. For who is greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who's serving at the table? And then he asks the question, well, isn't it the one who's reclining at the table is really the greatest? But then he finishes that passage by saying, but I'm the one who is serving you.
Here's what's so amazing is 3 months ago, we were, as a culture, worshiping basketball players, baseball players. I was getting ready for spring training and all of this.
You were getting ready for spring training?
Not like
you were
I was going to play. No, watch.
Nice.
And all of a sudden now the heroes today on Facebook and the news is nurses, doctors, truck drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in our community, you know, the people
Bonnie
that
Bessie.
Bonnie Bessie, they're at Dollar General, and you know, I went to the grocery store this morning and put on a scarf, you know, and there they are working away. They're the heroes, and so it's interesting how it's taken a crisis for us to really look beyond the curtain and see that servants are really the people that keep this world together.
Yeah. It is it's a shame that it takes the crisis to bring that out, and that we don't. I mean, you know, church people know the Sunday school answer, right? Like, we know it's the people who are not in the spotlight. In fact, you know, even to this, like, sometimes you find the people who are doing servant-like things, but they do it with, you know, with a picture, and then they post it, and you're thinking, well, what that almost negates it. It makes you feel like that you're looking for the spotlight in the moment of your serving, you know, which is not Jesus' point either.
No, it's that whole motivation in the Sermon on the Mount where, you know, you fast with a long face, or you want people to see you give, or you pray in a way that gets attention. We can serve in a way that gets attention.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Right.
You know, the person walking along and they're just looking so so down, so hungry. You're like, oh, what's going on? Oh, I'm fasting.
Right. Or the CEO vacuuming at lunch where everybody can see versus coming in early to do something as a servant.
Right.
It's the idea that a true servant heart is what Jesus is. It's talking a person where God is the only one who maybe notices most of the time. Because, you know, we haven't talked about truck drivers as heroes in a long time.
Long time, right?
In our lifetime.
Yeah. No, it's true. Heroes, truck drivers, farmers, all that the conversation is going, it's exactly right. And you know, Jesus in John 13, Jesus goes into washing all of the guys' feet, and as like an exclamation point statement of, I'm the one who's here serving you. Like, you think that in a way, like in Luke's passage, the ones reclining at the table, but and he does something that's so unbelievable, to the point where I don't think we can maybe even grasp, like, what would it be like to be in the room with Jesus and have Jesus actually be the guy washing your feet.
And really, the true setting was that they all knew the feet had to be washed, and nobody was going to do it because whoever did it was admitting to being the lowest.
Yeah.
And then Jesus does it, and I think how embarrassing that would have been for all of them. That's why Peter says, well, you're not washing my feet.
Yeah.
And, how for the rest of their life, they would have given anything to go back in time and wash Jesus' feet.
Right.
What an amazing moment that was.
Practically speaking about this, like, right now, everybody's pretty much at home with their families.
Right.
For those that, have young kids, you're working through, school at home and all of these things. And like I say, it's probably about a daily conversation right now, just because of like the inner workings of everybody just being together.
Right.
What your mindset is in having to live together, working together, and things to where, it's like, hey, I was just talking with Austin this morning about the way that you live your life with our family right now.
Right.
Like, you should be thinking that I want to do like Philippians 2, which talks about this mind of Christ, putting other people before yourself. And that is such a practical conversation right now, because I think the families and folks that just want to get out and get back to normal, but it's forcing us to put other people ahead of ourselves in our own homes, and in some cases, people who are like the nurses and those, or even in our community taking groceries to people and stuff. It is having that mindset of Christ, where I am going to be the one who serves you, even if it's at a cost to me. Right. It is hard to stay in that mindset, but I think that the circumstances has really forced us to have this conversation.
Right. Well, and the church is filled with those kind of people. I mean, we're doing this now on video, and then we're going to hand the thing to someone else, to Brian, who's going to fix it and make us look as good as he can.
Yeah.
And then, a tough job. But tonight there's going to be worship recorded, and so all of these things, people are doing things behind the scenes, but throughout the week, the person who runs the sound, the person that cleans the church, the person who sits in the nursery. I mean, all of those things that allow people to come into a room and hear the Word of God proclaimed with a relaxed mind.
Right.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
And nobody notices unless something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then it's not always with kindness that we notice.
I mean, I'm hoping that we get through this to the other side, and all of a sudden there's like this resurgence of energy to serve.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Even you mentioned the nursery this last week. Somebody on Facebook was saying, "Well, where's the nursery workers at my house on Sunday morning so that I can actually pay attention to the service?" Right. Yeah, that would be an ultimate place of serving, right? To go to someone's house and watch their kids so they can watch the service. I don't know if it'd be the healthiest decision.
Right.
But
that would be against the rules now.
I think so. Thank you so much for joining us as we just we had some discussion about some of the details from Passion Week. We wanted to invite you in and share in some of those discussions. We invite you, though, to come back tomorrow night, Good Friday night at 6 o'clock, and we'll be having our Good Friday service where Pastor Dave and I will be back. We're going to discuss some of the details about the crucifixion and that day, all the things that happened that day. But come back and be a part of that service. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to celebrate communion together, which is a little strange to do virtual communion, but I know some of your pastor friends have been doing that as well the last week.
Yeah, so anything is really okay. Whatever makes you feel like you're doing communion. Jesus took the cup from the Passover meal and the unleavened bread. And so we keep that tradition alive on Sunday morning, but you don't need to go shopping
Right.
to make it happen. You don't need to bake unleavened bread unless that would be a fun project for the family. But, so my friend sent me pictures from his church, and there was orange juice and pretzels, and it was all very nice cups of
Right.
juice. And it was all over the map, so whatever works for you.
So just be prepared that we are going to be doing communion together, though, tomorrow night, and we look forward to doing that together as a church family. So God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.